Hello and welcome to this video. My name is David Thorne. Now this video is going to be using UIKit and Swift, but just please remember this is a Swift UI video. I need to talk about this stuff here to talk about another topic in Swift UI. So please just don't push this aside if you want to learn Swift UI, because you're going to need this information for future Swift UI videos, because it's going to be relatively important, because we're only on iOS 17. Until we get to like iOS 18 and 19, that's going to have left a lot of the old UIKit stuff behind, but we haven't totally had this separation yet from Swift UI and UIKit. They're really in this zone where we still need to understand both of them. More Swift UI, but we're still going to, what I'm going to teach you in this video is relatively important for other videos that we're going to have to do. All right, so if you're watching a video in say 2026, 2027, this is going to be of no relevance to you anymore. But if you are in 2024, beginning 2025 and so on, it's going to be a little bit more relevant until the likes of iOS 18 is really moving towards iOS 19. All right, so with that said, let's just jump straight in, but you'll understand it. And most of the people watching these videos, you have commented, said you like this under the hood type situation, you like me diving deeper, my golden nuggets and so on. This is a golden nugget. All right, this is a golden nugget. So just sit back, trust me. All right, just trust me. I wanted to make another video, but then I had to make another video, and then I had to make another video, and this is the video now that is the precursor for those other videos. Okay, so just trust me with this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this this button called UI actions. Okay, and we're going to call it, and we're using interface storyboard. We're not using Swift UI here, and we're using language of Swift. We don't need any storage, we don't need any unit tests, and we're just going to go on. It's not super long video. All right, well, I don't know, it's not a super complicated video. All right, so let's just give it a build. Let's move it away from my phone. Let's put it on iOS let's put it on iOS 15 phone. It's not really relevant here because it's a UIKit video and we haven't lost anything from this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about actions, all right? And in order to do that, we're going to put a button on the screen, okay? And we're going to say it's whoops. Okay, it's up and running now. Good stuff. And we're going to say this is a UI button. All right, and remember, this is a UIKit button. And once we've got that on the screen, we're going to want to do something just to give it a little bit of positioning first of all. And if you haven't done any Swift UI, just trust me with this, okay? And we'll just say add, so we're going to say view, add subview and button, and then we want to say NS layout constraints, activate, and we're just going to position it in the center of the screen. Okay, so we're going to add now, we're going to align the button to be in the center basically. So we're going to have to first of all use the center X constraint here, and we're going to constrain it to the view, the outer view, and center X, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We'll say center Y. Constraint equal to view center Y. It's horrible stuff, and I wrote my own library to do this to make it a lot easier. But it's really a thing of the past, UIKit, but there's some things you're still going to have to understand. Okay, so we've now done this, and we've done this, and when we run it, we shouldn't get any crashes or anything like that, and it all should just come up on the screen as a blank screen, and we all should be running. Yes, we are. Okay, right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a function just called render, and this is what we're going to call every single time we want to make an update. All right, this is kind of how you would have done it in UIKit. You'd have like a view model and just call up render. So whenever you want to update the actual button or the view state, you would just call like a render function and so on. And so we're just going to say updated, and we're going to make a counter here, right? And the state of this text is going to be relevant for this normal here, okay? And we're going to have in here a private counter, and it's just going to be integer of 0. And it's going to be, it's going to be private. And then we're going to say every single time we update this counter, this is going to happen, all right? And we're just going to say render down here, okay? So we also need to change the set title color, and we're just going to set it to black for the normal state. When we run this, we should have a button in the middle of the screen. And there we go. All right, and when we click on it, it does nothing and so on, but who cares, right? This is the main part of the video now, all right? We're going to say button. So now we want to say add target. And in this, we're going to say self. So the action is going to be called upon itself, this one view controller, all right? Now this is the even more important part, and I'm going to even zoom in for it. This selector, and I'm not going to dig too deep into what this selector does, but what it's saying is look at this method, all right? And when we don't supply the actual class, it's going to assume this class itself, all right? Now we could supply a view controller here as well, but this is saying what instance of it is, and this is saying which method I should look to. And this is like the Objective-C stuff in the background, being able to do all sorts of stuff to it, all right, to be able to work out which method is being called and so on. So in here, we are going to say, and we're going to say function button tapped, all right? And the first parameter is then just going to be a UI button, which is going to be the sender. However, to talk to Objective-C, we have to say at Objective-C. So this is the bridge between Swift, not Swift UI. This is the bridge between Swift and Objective-C here. So we're saying, hey, this function here needs to talk to Objective-C. So now we can come in here and say button tapped right here. And for the event that's going to happen, it's going to be touch up inside. So it basically just means that the button has been pressed and it's gone back up again. All right. So now the event that we are going to do inside of that is nothing more than to say button, or we're going to say counter plus equals 1. So we're going to increment the counter by 1, and then we're going to say render. All right. And when we run this, we should see a button, and you can see here that we get updated and it updates the number because we're rendering it every single time. So there we go. That is basically how to give the button an action, all right? But we're not totally done here, okay? What we're going to do now, because this is something that you're going to see all over the place, and is you're going to see the delegate, not delete, a delegate pattern. And this is not a protocol, this is another, we are extending NS object, all right? And in NS object, we're just going to call the super init. It's just good practice to call the super init, just because sometimes you need to, all right? But I'm just going to show it to you here. You need to override the init and then call super init as well. I don't like extension. I don't like OOP. I'm not a fan of it, but this is how Objective-C works, and this is how it is, yeah. Anyway, so from here, we are going to say Objective-C. This is going to be a function that we want to be handled, and it's going to be button tapped. And by no surprise, we're going to say sender this time again. I'm going to say UI and button, all right? And we are then going to do here, and then we are going to have a counter inside of this as well, and every single time we are going to update our counter too, all right? But now the question is how can we talk back to this one view, all right? So rather than doing this, we're going to now say that we're going to have a delegate equals button delegate, and we'll instantiate this, right? And every single time, and rather than saying self, we are going to say then delegate here. This is the instance that's going to that's going to control this one here. And now we've got to copy and paste this, and we're going to say button delegate button tapped here to call this one instead. All right. So let's just comment our initial button tapped out. Obviously, we're not going to have any rendered here this time. Or we're still going to have rendered for the first time, but we're not going to have any rendered on the updates. Okay, so just to show that it's working at once, let's press this button, and you can see it came here once, all right, and it updated the count. Happy days. All right, so now we've got to have a way to talk back to this. And we're going to say here, and we're going to say updates, all right? Well, let's be a little bit more like Swift UI. Let's say state changed instead, and we're going to make it optional, and it's going to be then of this function is going to then take an integer, and it's going to return void. All right, and once we've done this, we're going to say state changed here, and we don't care whether it exists, to be honest with you, and then we're just going to pass it the counter here as well. So this is our event that's going to go on. All right. And so when we come down here, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, a delegate, and then our state changed, and we are going to interact with this. And we're going to say, okay, C, and we're going to say counter is equal to C. So every single time here, we're going to interact with this. And because we're going to be, because delegate is a property within inside view controller, right? And we are now capturing self. We don't want a strong reference to it. We're going to have a weak reference to it, right? And so inside of here now, we're just going to say self counter is equal to C here, right? And this is basically just going to say, hey, just keep a weak reference to it, all right? And then once we do that, we're going to say self render as well. So if we do have, if this view controller is still alive, right, and then this is not going to be non-optional, and we're going to update the counter, and then we're going to render afterwards. So we're pretty much doing exactly the same thing, but we're letting delegate handle this instead, all right? And when we do this, you see it all works perfectly fine again. And when I actually do it up here, you'll see it does get called there, and we run it further. And we come down here, and you can see then we actually go to the count once again, and we're updating our own counter here. We don't really have to, but what we're doing is we're making a separation between this counter and this counter. So we are saying, hey, this is your internal state, but we're keeping our own state here as well. You don't need to, but the point of this one video, first of all, is this at Objective-C. So this is another layer beneath Swift. Right, I'm not saying Swift UI because essentially Swift sits below Swift UI, and Swift UI is just a framework on top of using Swift to be able to show views and stuff. But potentially beneath that is this Objective-C stroke C++ area that's in the background doing all of the other heavy lifting and so on and stuff like that. That's completely abstract sentence there. There's obviously a lot more going on. But so this is just a way to be able to understand it. But the key part of this one video is this line here. All right, line 49 is add target. So when we want to be able to add an action or something like that to a UIKit view, all right, because everything is a UI view or a control or something like that. So if we just dig deeper now into button once again, you can see a UI button is a control. Forget about its NS coding. And when we go back down again, you can see we're into the Objective-C land here. And you can see that UI control is a UI view, all right? And so this is the realms of where we're going. Now, when I first started learning Swift, Objective-C was everything there. People were still developing applications using Objective-C. We had frameworks that we were using Objective-C, and I've never learned Objective-C because I don't like it. I think it's horrible, and I'd rather spend my time making myself a better Swift developer than learning Objective-C. All right, but this hashtag number selector and so on is one of the first things that you learnt when you started using the likes of Swift outside of Objective-C and so on, because this is the bridge between the two. But add target is very much a thing that you going to have to learn to do. So why is this important, right? And this is the crunch of this. Why is this important? Well, there are things like maps and so on that you might want to display inside your Swift UI application, and Swift UI has the map itself, but the best part of it only comes from iOS 17. And then if you want to support iOS 16 still, which is pretty cool, you've got the navigation stack and so on upward. So you've got all of this nice navigation system, and then you've got maps as well, but you don't get all of this nice declarative parts of the map. And there are other parts, I'm sure, within inside of the Swift UI UIKit system, let's call it, that still overlap with one another. And it's important that you understand this add target and also a few other things and selectors and stuff like that, because you're going to have to be able to have like some form of coordination. And I'm going to underline that in the air, coordinator between Swift UI and Swift or a UI view or a UI kit, whatever it is. So that's the important thing to note out of this. The coordination, the coordinator underlined, all right? We're going to have to have some way of having the imperative actions of UIKit to be able to then be displayed using the declarative form of Swift UI. Okay. With that said, I hope that you've got something out of this one video. I hope the few people or that really want to understand this stuff. If you want to be a top developer, if you want to be able to understand Swift UI and Apple development at a very architectural level. I mean, it's an incredibly high level where you would sit down and just put stuff on paper, understanding what is the best way of doing it. You're going to have to understand it at a low level too. All right, because it's all well and good just jumping in, you know, at the junior level of Swift UI and say, oh, I can make a scroll view, or I can make a list view, I can make, who cares? All right, you want to be able to understand the fundamental things, because that is what happens. That is when you go into a company and you can show you that you know this stuff at a real deep level, plumbing level, the ins and outs of it. That's where the computer scientist level is, all right? And the junior developer has done some form of apprenticeship or so on, whatever, who cares? Apprenticeship is apprenticeship. At least they've tried hard, they've worked hard. But someone who's learned stuff at a core level, all right? This is the people who can sit with the, and I'm not saying you have to have a degree to be a computer scientist. I don't have a degree, but I am for sure a computer scientist, right? And I can go up against the best developers as well, and I can sit in a room of top developers and architects and have a good conversation, and sometimes tell them how to do it instead. All right. With that said, I hope that you got something out of this one video. I hope that you learned something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and most importantly, please just give me some feedback, even if it's just a thanks very much, David, or great stuff, David, cool info, David, or whatever these. Please, 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 they're just for me. That's the only thing. It's just for me, not for the YouTube algorithm or anything like that. Just to make me feel happy. It's super, super selfish of me, but please do that for me. And I would really appreciate it. Thanks very much. But even though I still super appreciate all the support and everything from you guys, girls, people, humans, and so on. With that said, if you've got any questions, feedback, or concerns, then don't forget to start a conversation in the comment section down below. As always, my name's David Dawn, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, and goodbye.